This episode of This Agile Life has been brought to you by BrilliantAgile.com, providing Agile and Scrum training, consultancy, and personnel.
BrilliantAgile.com. Done right, it's brilliant.
Released on Sunday, October 11th, 2015.
This Agile Life, episode 102.
We are more similar than we know.
Yay!
The software industry transforms more and more every day. Agile methods are quickly replacing traditional ones. The question is, are you agile enough? This podcast is devoted to agile and lean software development. Time to welcome your agile coaches on This Agile Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Agile Life, a podcast about what it's like to be agile in the real world. Welcome to our episode this evening, and we're going to do something fun where we're going to demonstrate a real technique that you could use on an agile team to get feedback from your colleagues. So, who's joining us tonight for this episode of This Agile Life?
Hi, this is Nate Mackey joining you tonight.
Yes, that's Nate Mackey. And of course, if I didn't introduce myself, my name's Jason Tice, and actually Nate and I do work together. So, but who else do we have joining us this evening?
Hello, this is Natalie Simonson. Welcome.
Okay, and I believe we have one other host tonight who's joining us.
Well, and just to prove that Natalie and I are not the same person, we can be on the same podcast at the same time. This is Amos.
Amos, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And before we even get started, I want to say thank you to Nate, Natalie, and Amos, who agreed to do this as an experiment tonight, where we're going to try to present this as if we're doing this we're going to do this technique ourselves. And the cool thing is it's going to allow us to give each other some feedback. And it's also going to allow our listeners to hear, hopefully, a technique that you could use in a team inception, a retrospective, or really any activity with your team, almost as we presented this evening. So the first thing and my role will be kind of as a facilitator, but also as a participant. So I have some prompts that I'm going to read to make sure I set the stage correctly. So the first thing we're going to do is, would you guys all agree that we are members of a team?
Agree.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'm gonna propose that our team is a team that meets regularly, and we put out a podcast about agile values, principles, and practices. So is that a fair context that we can reflect on that as our group, as a group?
Works for me.
Except for the fact that Natalie and I have never been on the same podcast, I will say yes.
But we agree. On a higher level, Amos, we really do agree.
Yeah, so
That's true.
So, but real life, this is where, maybe if you've got a large team, and, we have a pretty large team here at This Agile Life, so we're actually not all on the same podcast, but we could probably still give each other some feedback. So we're going to begin the activity this evening with some silent writing. And so I've asked everyone to bring a few note cards. Ideally, I ask you to bring 5 to 7 note cards. So do you all have 5 to 7 note cards? Yes, you do. Okay, so here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is a little bit of a thinking activity. And what's important here is I want you to write down the things that come to your mind first. Okay, and this is a feedback thing. It's more important what comes to your mind first versus thinking a lot about it. So I'd like you to write the first 5 to 7 attributes that come to mind about what you bring to our team. This is
on one card?
No, typical format. This is one attribute per note card. So it could be something that's good. It could be something that's bad. It's really the first 5 to 7 things that come into your mind first. And so for those that are listening, and I'm going to have to write mine down here too, we're probably going to cut some of this out since we're thinking.
Oh, man, I haven't even hit the minimum.
What about Amos? Availability.
Hang on, we're going to get to that. Stop. Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I would say I did at one point have a lot of availability, but now it's starting to be crappy. But I found out if you have 2 teenage daughters that you're not allowed to do anything that doesn't involve them.
I have a 13 and 15-year-old. So again,
mine are 3 months apart. They're 15 and one's turning 15 this month. And then I have 3 more younger ones.
Okay, so Amos, let's come back to the activity here. So,
well, I'm enjoying getting to know Natalie.
Well, the activity.
Can you just pause your game for a minute so I can get to know Natalie for just? No, I'm kidding.
I will grant your wish.
You're so pushy.
No. Oh boy, I can see the feedback on this one. So we've attempted to write these things out. So I'll say that I got to 7. A theory that I have, but I will share. I do a lot of reflection like this myself, just for my own practice. So I think what I will share is the more you think about stuff like this type of an activity does become a little bit easier. So let's have some fun. So I have a couple of questions that I will put these in the show notes because these are scripted and they are kind of designed for us to have a round robin conversation. And I will read them exactly as they are designed. So which one of your attributes do you feel best about?
Oh my gosh.
So
just keep making this harder and harder and harder.
Come on, this Natalie, you should have this one because you said you focused on the easy thing, the things you thought you were really good at.
Oh yeah, I've totally got the ones that I feel best about.
Do you have that, Natalie? You have one?
Yeah.
Amos, do you have one?
I gotta spread these out
because what we'll do, the way the technique is set up is for us to have some short kind of round robin conversations, and ideally we're going to get to know each other a little bit better here. So
I feel like I need a personality traits Kanban board for all these cards. I just don't know what the columns would be.
Well, I've asked you which one makes you feel the best. The one that makes you feel the best. Nate, are you okay?
We're using the F word.
Whoa. Okay, who's
the other F word, according to John?
Who's ready to go first? Who wants to share?
I will.
Okay, tell us what it is and tell us why you picked it.
Mine is fun. I believe that bringing fun to what we do on a daily basis, we spend way too much at work to not have fun. And that is one of the main things I focus on.
Okay.
So that's why I think I bring that to this. Yeah, party.
Okay, so obviously something we're doing here is a little bit of mental model creation. So did anyone else have anything similar to fun?
Possibly.
What is it?
I wrote horrible humor. Bring horrible humor to the team. Because I try to laugh and have a good time, but I think a lot of times my jokes are pretty bad.
Okay,
and probably only funny to not even to me.
Okay, well I'm going to build on that, Amos, and I wrote humor as well. So I tried to make some jokes.
Wow.
Nate, did you have anything related to this? It's okay to say no.
It didn't.
Okay, so who wants to go next?
Okay, this is kind of related. Wait, hold on. I have one that's kind of related. I'm feeling left out, so I'm going to say this is the same. It's positive style.
Positive?
I think that absolutely relates. Yeah.
Okay. Now,
I think that relates.
But that is not the one that you picked as what you feel the best about. Okay. All right, but what's nice is where Natalie.
Was my horrible humor supposed to be what I felt best about? Because that's not what I felt.
No. We're gonna go. We're gonna go around, and each person will have a chance to share. That's why.
Okay.
We need something to have the central question posted right now. Central question. Sorry. Okay. So who wants to go next? Amos.
Well, I think that Nate should probably go next since he was feeling left out.
Okay, that's fine.
Aw.
So
Nate, I'm trying to have positive style, Nate.
I know. Did you write compassionate towards others as one of your cards, Amos?
Oh no, but I want to now.
All right. So
we're gonna get to that.
The one I felt the best about is management perspective. So I feel like one of the times that I've been able to contribute the best on the show is when there's a question about running teams, running companies, and I'm able to kind of contribute to that. So that was the one I felt the best about.
Okay, so as you're seeing the pattern, is there anyone else who has something similar to that is kind of like an ally of Nate's?
Nice. I wrote down dev point of view.
Yeah, and I put down manager because I'm a manager in that in my role. So yeah, I think that does bring a different perspective.
Okay.
Because
well, I was saying I put down impacts of Agile beyond the team. So similar.
And I really like it that we're not a group of people doing the exact same position in a team.
Exactly.
Okay, so Amos, you and I, do you want it or do you want me to take it?
Oh, this is your game, so you have to go last.
Okay,
Tice. That's what
fine. That will become a new rule. I will always go last. That's fine.
So I put community pusher. I really love people, and I love hearing from our listeners and learning from them too, not just from each other. And I think it's a gigantic. I want to say resource, but they're people. It's a gigantic group that pools together to get better. So I really try to push for community in our podcast.
Okay. And if anything, Amos, I think I'm almost going to just say that my thing that I thought was best was almost the same as yours, because I wrote down promote and inspire learning. I didn't focus it on the community specifically, but I know I've gotten some feedback where it's like, what did he just say? And I've then heard that some people actually went and attempted to follow up and learn some of those things. So that's kind of what I thought I did best, hopefully. Anyone got anything like that? Other than Amos?
my closest would be what I put was being a noob. And I think that that's all about perspectives and learning and bringing in different opinions. I feel like a relative babe in the woods in this field because I know that so many of you have so much more experience. But I think that there's also an element of what I bring as being somewhat more new to the field is a different and fresh perspective. Because like with any job, you start to get a little jaded in some areas.
Okay. So again, our first question here that we've reflected on is, out of all the attributes that we brainstormed, which one, when given the choice, did we feel each of us as an individual really performs best? And then also, which we identified people on the team who are linked to that. So let's go on to another prompt. You guys okay?
Yep.
Okay, so here's the fun one that it may be easier for some than others. If you had to pick one attribute over the others, which one would it be and why? This does not necessarily have to be the attribute that you selected as your best. So if you could only pick one card, which one card would it be and why would you choose that?
I want to jump in because I'm really excited about mine.
Well, so let's. Everyone ready?
Passionate about mine. So I wrote passion. I feel really strongly about what we do to help each other and to help the community at large. And I have a lot of passion in my job. And I just want to continue to grow in it. And I think that I hope that carries over into the podcast.
Okay.
I think it actually drives all of my other cards.
Okay.
And I'll go next, if you don't mind.
No.
Am I okay to go next?
Yeah, this is. I wish there was a better way to have a talking token we could pass around. So this is again, if you facilitate distributed retrospectives, I feel your pain because this is. But go on, Natalie.
Well, mine, and this was my favorite, which was fun, and I think it closely ties with passion. I don't think if you're passionate about something, you're having fun, even through difficult times and challenging times, and that's why I believe that that element of that you're enjoying yourself and learning and growing and learning. And having fun on your from a day-to-day basis is key. So I think it very closely ties with being passionate about what you do on a day-to-day basis.
So just to summarize, yours was the fun card.
Yes.
So your most important card was also your best card.
Yes.
Okay. So Nate, I have to be last according to Amos. So what did you pick?
For this one, I picked willingness to embrace new ideas. I think that's true of all of us. But that's one thing that has really that's what led me to doing programming Agile in the first place. Is that I saw the merit in it, and I really wanted to try it out. And some of my favorite episodes on the podcast have been when we've had guests like Woody Zuhl and Llewellyn Falco and those folks that have come in and had new ideas about how to do things and gotten me excited about them and wanting to talk about them and see how we could try them out.
Okay. And I'll share. Mine will be quick because my thing that I thought was the most important for me was kind of talking about Agile beyond just teams. So really focusing more on orgs and just other weird things that kind of influence Agile more from the business side, not necessarily, within the circle of a team. So, and there was silence. So, okay. So now here's the fun one. Here's a fun one. I get to the more fun questions. So now let's talk about your runner-up. So ideally, this is the card that you still have left that you can play that was not your best thing, and it also was not your most important card. So this is going to force you to play and share a new card that you haven't played yet with the group. So ideally, if you've stacked your cards, then
wait. Does playing count? Oh, I'm sorry. I just had a clarifying question. Does playing count as the ones where you said, do you have something similar?
No, if we did a linked card, you can still play one of those. This is where when you would have played a card to answer one of the specific questions that we asked, or that I asked. So think about this as where you're playing your cards out on a table, and so you.
So the one I would choose.
Go ahead, Nate.
I think we have some lag.
Yeah, I think we do. Sorry about that. The one that I would choose is experience. I think that's one of the main reasons that we bring people onto the show. And, Natalie says she's new, but she has experience. We all do with doing these things. And that's what makes it, I think, interesting for people to listen to. Why they come to us in the first place is because they want to hear people who have actually done this stuff. So I think that's pretty important.
Okay. And Natalie's on mute. She was talking.
Still.
Okay, ready?
Hey, welcome back.
And this is Natalie Simonson. I'm happy to be here. So, Nate, given yours, it's actually mine. My runner-up is Waterfall to Agile, and the reason why that's so important to me is because I have experienced some really bad introductions to Agile, but even through that, I saw this, I had so many aha moments. And that's my experience that you're talking about, is that, those connections that you make from this makes it so much better than what it was before. So yeah, I think they're very similar runners up because they speak to the same thing, that experience of learning why one approach is so much better than another. Thumbs up.
Okay, and then Amos.
Actually, it's very related to Natalie's, I believe, is I as a traveling around contractor, I go through frequent team changes. And so I have a lot of different struggles that I go through because the teams are all so very different. And so I think that brings a lot of new ideas and new talking points to the group.
Okay. And mine, just to finish the round robin, was the how to measure card. And the reason why I picked that second is I think where measurement goes wrong is people just measure things for the sake of measuring. So ideally, you've got to understand the team or the environment or the business, and then you measure within that context. So I think that's where a lot of people might want to prioritize this card as something more important. So I put that second. Okay, so now we got a history question for us all to think about. And our intent of this activity is really for us to get to know each other a little bit better. And if I do a quick temperature check, has anybody learned something new about someone else on the team through our conversation thus far? Like by a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs
That's
down.
not thumbs up and thumbs down is not very audible for the group.
Well, okay, but
it's not good for a radio show. You were a radio guy.
I was a radio show, but I'm also looking at Skype where I can see everybody. So,
Right.
So Amos, have you learned anything? I'll probe everybody. Fine.
Yes, I have.
Okay, Natalie, have you learned something?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Can I say more than just yes, I have?
If you want to.
I just want to say that I think that it's interesting that the more that we delve into each of the elements that are important to us, the more similarities that we see about what is important to us.
Interesting. That could that be part of the objective of the activity?
Am I jumping ahead?
Maybe, maybe not. So, Nate, how about yourself? Nate's on mute. Did I lose Nate? Where'd Nate go? Hi, Nate.
Yes, I would definitely say I learned something.
So, and obviously that's something that I'll just share, having done this with a few groups, is that some groups are a little bit further along in their team formation, that sometimes they'll say that, okay, that wasn't the greatest activity. So I think it's good as a facilitator to check that sometime, just to make sure people are still getting value out of the conversation. Okay, so let's a little history quiz. So out of your attributes you've identified, which do you feel was the most recent addition to your persona or personality, and how did you become comfortable or learn it? So what have you learned most recently? And then when you're going to get a volunteer to start us off. Amos is priceless.
I don't know. Like, a lot of these are kind of, I think, core personality for me. And so, like, what I learned recently is hard, especially when we talked about our traits. It's, I guess most recently I'd have to go back to the same thing as last time, which was the frequent team changes. Because when we started this podcast, I was kind of on one team for most of it at the very beginning. And now I've moved around a lot more. Well,
and Amos, just looking at you, it's okay to say that, because what I would say, what have I learned most recently? It's all this crazy stuff about how to measure crazy stuff. So that's interesting. That what I would say is what you and I both have data to show is that something that we've ranked as not as important is also something that we've said is we've learned it more recently. So maybe it takes us some time to become confident with the concept to where we think it's more important, and by then we've been doing it for a while. So, Natalie or Nate, what do you got?
I'll go if I can unmute. Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Great. So similar, if I look at all of these chronologically, becoming a manager is the most recent, even though that's still sort of like 2 years or so ago. And that introduced a lot of different considerations for me in my Agile learning and just in my personal growth in general. Particularly as you start to look a little bit more strategically about what you're doing with Agile growth within an organization, and promoting self-organization on teams. And I just had a conversation today with somebody about there is some benefit being brought into this kind of role while being a scrum master or in that kind of coaching kind of role, because when you are brought into being a manager, you start to look at things like, I don't need to be there for every single ceremony and every single activity that happens, and it changed my perspective on how we encourage our organization to grow with their Agile maturity.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think it does. Anyone else?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, Nate,
Cool.
I think you will close out our round robin here for this last question, which is really I want to say it's the last of our discovery questions. The next then are more about our team interactions.
Okay. Yeah, this is hard for me too, just like Amos, looking at all of these and they seem like kind of core traits, but I guess I would have to go with experience, just because that my experience continues to change and adjust as we go, and so that's probably the most recent. And the things that we've done recently at work and with teams are things that I try to bring to the podcast, and so that's the one I'd go with.
Okay, so now we can have a little bit of fun here. So, is there an attribute that you think you could improve, and if so, how? And if you happen to identify something, do you think there's a member of the team that could help you with this? And this is where you can make it a request, or as we reveal these, if someone wants to help someone, you could offer to provide some support to someone else.
Can you repeat the question?
So the question is there an attribute that you think you could improve? And this can be any card, including a card that you've already played. I will do a better job of putting the prompts into the show notes. And of note, a key thing about discussion-based techniques like this, it's kind of like a retrospective where there's a build. You don't necessarily want to show all the questions up front, because then people kind of jump to the conclusion. So, would anyone like to go first?
Go, Natalie.
Okay, so I'm going to start this with a little bit of I think a bit of discussion about what I think is happening here for our team. We're all talking about the teams that we work with away from here, and I know that Jason, you started this talking about us as a team. But I think all of our conversations have naturally sort of fallen to the teams that we work with on a day-to-day basis. Would that be fair?
I think it is, and I'll share. I actually took a note of that, and I'm kind of just letting it go because I think I did have the context here that I wrote down, and we kind of did pivot from that. But for the purpose of demonstrating the technique, I think that's almost better because that's what's happened.
Yes, and I in the interest of transparency, I want us to call that out because what I'm about to say is very much so like related to the stuff that I see on with my teams, and it kind of dawned on me that I was really thinking about the teams that I work with on a day-to-day basis rather than thinking of this Agile life as a team.
Sure. Yeah.
So mine was the non-developer team card, and I do think that there's things that I could do to improve that. I mean, however rudimentary I could increase my skills in that area gives me a greater understanding and empathy for the developers that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis. So that is why I think this is something that I could actually improve upon. And quite honestly, if I'm going to call myself out here, I've had plenty of developers offer to help sort of move that needle somewhat. So it's really me just committing to it and working towards that.
And just to make sure I got that, that's where you want to improve your understanding of really the developer role as part of an Agile team.
Right. And actually, like down to coding. So, it's there's a difference with speaking the speak and walking the walk. And that's where I feel like this could help that.
Okay. All right. Who's next?
Let's write some code together, Natalie.
Yes.
We can do that. You can be my pair.
Okay.
I'll go next. I think for me, what I think this team could hold me accountable for is willingness to embrace new ideas. Although I think that was a trait that I bring, I also think that sometimes, although I'm interested in new ideas, I don't always follow through with actually trying them out. And so I think this team could help hold me accountable to that by asking for commitments or checking in to see how well I'm actually trying to apply some of these ideas in real life.
Okay. Amos, I have to go last, you said.
I didn't mean every time, but okay. So I wrote some things down after you asked this question. And I guess really it comes from frequent team changes, but I wrote down bringing up issues and knowing how to stop conflict is often when moving from team to team. I don't necessarily know how to talk to the personalities on that team, and I get very frustrated for my first 2 to 3 months working with a team. It's like the first week is great, and then after that I feel really horrible and like I can't make any progress. And I even reached out today to us internally and to the community for some help with that. And I think that I could probably get help from you guys on how to better bring up issues and either not just tuck my tail between my legs and walk away, or also not be too much of an a-hole, for lack of a better term.
Well, and Amos, I'll offer to even help with that a bit, since to me it's actually more about embracing conflict as opposed to trying to minimize it. So I think there's it puts ways we're trying to adapt this card game to work on a podcast. There's feedback. There's conflict games we could also play. I don't know how they'll work, but maybe we'll try one of those in the future. If our listeners like this and they let us know about it in our community. Oh, I guess I'm the last one. I have one that I did right here. Here's a fun one. Everyone should love this. I'm long-winded.
There you go, Craig. He said it just for you.
I'm long-winded, and I have admit that. So I appreciate everyone's number one reminders of that, both you guys and also the people who are involved with the podcast who are not here. So I do appreciate that, and I do acknowledge that that's something that I can improve upon, and I'm working on it. So I appreciate your patience, and I value your feedback.
Thank you, Jason. You are always gracious whenever you receive that feedback, and I want to say thank you for that, because I appreciate that.
And for anyone out there, don't be afraid to tell me to shut up, or move on. So
it's hard to balance that enough information versus too much.
Yeah,
like there's a fine line between too little and too much, and it's easier, I think, to recognize too much than too little, because too little, then people just jump to conclusions and you don't necessarily know that they don't have enough context, and you might take whatever they're saying as, hey, that's what I should try. And maybe you shouldn't. So I don't know. I think that I try to drag out conversations versus dump a lot of data. Maybe that can help. Is go back and forth for a while instead of here's a data dump. Now tell me what you think.
All right. Well, thank you. So I've got I guess we have 2 more prompts here, and then we'll debrief the activity. So here's the fun one. Is there an attribute that you have in your deck that you would like to gift to another member of the group? And of course, if you would like to do that, you have to tell us why. If you don't want to gift anything, then you can pass, actually. So
do you have to say who you want to gift it to?
Of course. So one thing I'll share from the coaching community, this would typically be called a request. Something we have talked about is this idea of an invitation where you get invited to help someone. This is where it's like, no, Jason, you talk a lot. You really need to cut it off and say what you want to say in less words. Okay, so this would be a direct request.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Is it, by gifting it to somebody, you're saying that you need to be more like this?
Yes, it's a true direct feedback, or again, what a lot of coaches call a true request.
Can I gift someone else's card? So can I say Nate said this earlier, and I really think that Tice, you should have more of that.
So believe it or not, the answer is no, because that's the last question, Amos, I'll tell you.
Oh, yes!
So this is called the gift, and then there's
I win.
there's a thing to close us out called the steal, which is the last play. So if we were in Vegas, you would have been kicked out a long time ago because you've already made your own cards. You've wanted to break the rule. Sorry.
Speaking of getting kicked out of casinos, Natalie, we need to have a story time after the podcast is over.
Okay, so would anyone like to gift anything to anybody? And one thing I'll share, this of course is a card-based feedback game where what we did tonight, since we were distributed, we made our own cards. There are lots of decks of cards for feedback. They're all over. Go to Amazon. There's like about 8 different people selling them, where sometimes when you play a game like this, maybe you've dealt out the cards, and so you may have a card in your hand that you haven't played yet, that you look at someone on your team, you say, oh my goodness, I want to give this to that person. So when we do our own cards, a lot of times it's people won't necessarily want to gift something. So are there any gifts tonight?
I do not have any gifts,
okay.
Mr. Trebek.
Amos or Nate, I will share.
Go ahead.
I don't think I have any gifts, especially in lieu of our conversation already, because I would say that it was really cool to hear Nate and Natalie's perspectives about management, which is kind of agile beyond just the team level, and how that impacts. So, but I don't feel the need to gift that because they already have acknowledged they think that way. So I think that's kind of a cool thing. So it's almost, I want to share, it's kind of a neat thing, the fact that we've learned enough that we don't feel the need to gift these gift cards, which I think is cool.
I like to give gifts based on I try to really listen to what people themselves say that they need, or what I recognize that they need. And I heard Natalie tonight say that she really needed some more dev point of view. So if I could just hand that to her, I would love to.
Thank you. I appreciate your gift.
Okay, and Nate, do you have any gifts or any reassurance?
I'll go with one. I'm hesitant to do this because it's not like it's totally lacking at all. But I had one more card that I haven't talked about yet that says love of process. And I think in this case, I would like to gift that Amos. I think sometimes tends to push against process when he wants to kind of, cut through, as it were, and, get things done effectively. And I totally get that. But there is something to be said for applying process in certain cases that helps people get better at what they do and feel more confident about it. So again, not that he has no love of it, but that I think I would say that I would love to see him embrace that a little more.
Thank you very much. I would like to embrace that a little more. I feel like I have some love for process, and I really get mad at people who say, "Oh, you got too much process." I'm like, "Well, can you tell me why?" But I do recognize that I should probably not push back as much as I do, because until I truly understand, I'm like, "Oh no, you're wrong," and so that it would be very good for me to embrace a little bit of that.
Okay, and so. The last prompt to conclude our discussion here is, as I did foreshadow to, are there any attributes that you have not yet mentioned with the group? And so this is where we have to share what else did we have that we haven't shared yet. So have you kept track of that? So we should go around and share those, and then after we share them, if you hear one that you want to steal from someone else, tell us why and what it is. So who would like to share their unplayed cards first that you have not shared with the group? Amos.
Okay, nobody's talking, so I will. Openness. I feel like I don't hold much back as far as issues that I'm having or opinions that I have, and I think that's a good thing.
Okay, anything else? Just one?
I don't remember. I think knowing how to stop conflict, but really I don't mean stop. sometimes I mean start conflict too.
Embrace is the word we use.
Embrace conflict is a really good thing, because I used to be very conflicting and like conflicting that's maybe not the right terminology, but I used to like force conflict whenever I thought things needed to change. And then I got to a point where I tried to avoid conflict and like very gently nudge people. And I think that there's a happy medium in there somewhere that I really need to get to.
Okay, I'll go next to demonstrate how to share these. So I had a card that said humor that I did share that one in the beginning because Natalie had fun. And I had this think on your feet card, or think on feet card, kind of the idea of responding to change versus following a plan. So those were my one. Nate or Natalie, anything else?
I shared all mine.
Okay, so Nate played his hand, and Natalie.
I believe I shared all mine. The one that I think was a follow one, whereas others were part of a specific question. Like I said something was similar to, was being a noob. But the others, fun, non-developer, waterfall to agile, manager, I shared all of those. So
okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so so does anyone want to steal? Amos, it sounded like you wanted to steal before.
Embrace conflict.
Embrace conflict. You wanted to steal.
Wasn't that yours?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So to wrap, I guess to wrap this up, typically in a little coaching circle conversation like this or a team, I would ask if everyone would share their takeaway from the experience, which would be what you learned about yourself, and have you identified something that you're asking for help from the group or from another person on the group? What is that? So what did you get from the experience tonight?
I think for me, it caused me to kind of think more intentionally about what I'm doing here, or why I'm here, why it makes sense for me to be here. Which, it's easy to fall into, imposter syndrome for everyone. And sometimes it's nice to just reflect on, oh yeah, I do have aspects here that make sense, that go with this team and what we're trying to accomplish, and that's helpful. So I think that was great to be able to go through that.
Mine was not dissimilar, is that as we got into the discussion a little bit more, I really started to see the value of thinking about this more intentionally on a regular basis rather than being asked to. Because there were more cards that I would have wished that I had written down at the end of the exercise, as opposed to before it. And then additionally, the other one was, I feel like many of us, while what we wrote down on the cards were one thing, there were very similar themes across all of us. And so the more different we think we are, the more alike that we truly are.
Okay.
I kind of go with the same kind of theme as Natalie's, that at the beginning of this, it was hard to come up with these things that I bring to the team, and the self-reflection there was really good. And I ended up writing more cards as we went, and as I heard what other people had said, I think it's a really good exercise. I would like to do something very similar sometime, where instead of writing cards about yourself, you write like maybe a card or two about each other person. And so you can see what other people feel that your value is, because I think that would help with the imposter syndrome that Nate mentioned, and let us know, like, hey, these are the things that other people see that you bring to the table that you may not see yourself.
Yeah, and that's a great episode. There's all types of ways to twist kind of the prompts, Amos, which is why I made sure to read them exactly as I wrote them tonight. So I had 3 that I'll just run them down real quick. I appreciate the support that I'm known as a long-winded person. I valued hearing that other people feel that, as at least from those of us affiliated with the podcast, feel that we're on kind of on target with this idea of promoting learning, because that's something that I value. I wrote it down, but I heard that echoed by others. And then I think even as we just got started with what Natalie shared first to get this whole activity started was, we kind of all are in this as, I word the word humor because we are helping people learn, but hopefully we're doing it in a manner that is, kind of engaging, and it's not like a boring lecture. So hopefully it's that's working, and it's great to hear that other people value that type of learning as well. So, and at that point, we would say that we have concluded our conversation and our feedback game. So, with it done, what do you guys think? I mean, why don't we talk about it for maybe a few minutes, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So, what do you guys think about it?
I definitely like it. When you said it was a feedback game initially in the Slack channel, I was wondering how much feedback is it from a personal perspective or from a work approach? And I'm surprised by how much of this could be applied to a team and work approach, as opposed to, my concern was like it could end up being a very personal attack, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you could put by all the prompts that we asked could have been asked one-on-one, but that was the idea of the central question, or the theme was, pretend we're a team right now for this Agile life, and let's talk about these attributes with that as our backdrop.
Yes.
I think it's really challenging to get a team to talk about these kinds of personal attributes, and so having a structured conversation that centers around what you think about yourself versus what other people think about you, that it's easier to write those things down and not feel attacked and feel more willing to be open. And yet once you start saying them, it creates conversation that actually gives you feedback about yourself from other people. So I think that's kind of an interesting way to try to promote some of those kinds of feedback loops.
Yeah, and I think the thing that came out, and again, full disclosure, this was not pre-planned, this was not scripted. I did have the prompts ahead of time, but I did not share them with anybody. It was to hear how right off the back we found that common ground. Literally, I mean, Natalie got it started right away, and next thing you know, it's a little bit easier to have this conversation because at the end of the day, we're kind of all in this for the same reasons. And I mean, I observe teams where they probably have that, but they just don't know it because they haven't had a conversation like this to uncover it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was hard at the beginning of this, and the coming up with everything. I would really like to take these cards and how you do user personas sometimes for your team. I would like to take like a giant sticky, those big ones, and draw an outline of a person and put my name on it, and then stick all these cards to it, and maybe throughout the week add stuff or rearrange them.
Yeah.
I think that this game has brought me reflection even tomorrow and the next day, and I really like that.
Well, or the thing that I'll share, Amos, that I've done with a few groups is I call it like a learning menu, which is like everyone on the team, right? I know I did a thing with paper plates once, so we called it learning plates, but where you take a paper plate, you draw a line across it. On the top half of the plate are the things that you want to share with other people because you love sharing them, and then on the bottom half of the plate are the things that you want to learn from others, and you throw it up on the wall for your team, your work group, your company, and it becomes like a networking wall of, hey, I want to learn how to write Python scripts, and Amos, you're great at Python, so I can go to lunch with you and learn from you, and it just makes that transparent. So
I just want to, can I add something too?
Yeah, and I want to share a few facilitation things that I experienced here in the facilitation chair too, if I may.
Well, mine is more from a management perspective as we're reflecting on this, is that I think this is an awesome tool to use as a one-on-one. You could also use it as a management technique as far as like getting somebody to think about what they want to improve on, where they see their strengths, particularly at like review times and things like that. Since I've identified myself as a manager and therefore shall ever heretofore be hated, I thought that is a technique that could be used.
Yeah, and again, full disclosure, I probably over on the shelf next to the bag of junk from Agile 2014 that we were looking at before the podcast tonight, I could probably go on the bookshelf and find 5 different books that have similar card-based techniques. So again, this was a card-based technique that I've just has some questions that I found value for. I have no idea if it's in someone's book over there. It could be, for all I know. So there's lots of. Put this way, if you want to know more about card-based techniques, ping us on our Slack channel or via This Agile Life, because there's lots of references out there. A few things from the facilitator chair, just for FYI. It was really hard for us to keep track of what we were talking about. We already saw how we got off topic. So for anyone who has to do distributed retros or something similar like this, be careful, because again, we kind of lost it tonight. So that's where you got to figure out how to solve that problem. The idea of it was kind of, I felt it was a little awkward that our conversation was kind of paused because it's like, who's going to share next? And we couldn't have that talking token that we passed around. I guess we could have just set up an order so it would have flowed better. It just seemed, I felt there were times it kind of felt a little awkward. So I think that's what we could figure out. I have done this technique where we did it with cards on an online system. So there was no talking. So you could see all the cards on the table as people played them. That was actually kind of neat because it made it easy to keep track of the cards that were out there. Here we were kind of using our memories. So... But yeah, by the way, you guys got something out of it, so I think it was successful, but I guess what I'm trying to convey is if you want to do this online on Skype like we did tonight, I think there are ways to improve it. So have at it, let us know how it goes.
Definitely will. This is something I think I will absolutely be using in the near future.
Yeah, and what we'll do, if you did follow along tonight, I don't want to go over the prompts here just because they were in the recording, but we'll make sure that we kind of put the prompts that I chose to use, as well as, again, our central question, which obviously you'll want to modify your central question or your context to whatever's relevant for your team, your company, your project, whatever. So, or if you want to have a conversation about a podcast, go for it.
This week's hottest picks.
Amos, I think you're up first.
Oh my gosh, hottest picks. The Infinity wallet. I was tired of sitting on a big old fat wallet, so I bought this thing called an Infinity wallet, and it's super thin. I guess it actually limits you on what you can carry, but it's fantastic. I also find that it's very nice and easy to get things in and out of. My second pick is the favicon generator. Now, I remember back in the day when there was one favicon and it worked for everything, and now every different Apple device has a different favicon than it wants, and Android has a different one, and another one. There's like Windows has different ones. There's like 40 or 50 files. So if you go to favicon generator, you can drop a file on there, and it will give you all of the files back plus the CSS file that will deal with all of the favicons, and maybe not CSS, maybe HTML header. It's really nice and easy, and I've used it a couple times. And then last, in sticking with my community pusher, is the This Agile Life community. We recently opened up a Slack channel for everybody instead of Google+, and I think over the past couple days that we've been experimenting with it, it's been really fantastic, and we've had a lot of conversation back and forth.
Okay, and for those in the Google Plus or the Slack community, I apologize for my long posts. So I'm next on the list. So I got one. I got a live event. I think everything I ever pick is a live event. So we're going to do another Open Spaces St. Louis, Missouri. It is currently October 2015. The Open Space is going to be on Friday, November 20th. That's right before Thanksgiving, kind of like the last thing before the holiday week. So our theme is very similar to what we did tonight. It's practices, experiences, and games to help people work together better. So if you liked what we did tonight and want to come hang out with 50 to 60 people that are into that kind of stuff, please join us on Friday, November 20th. It's at Washington University. We'll put the link to the website in the show notes. We're still getting the details hashed out, but it should be a lot of fun. And you'll see that we're going to also co-brand this event as what's called a play camp, which is that's a Centennial endeavor, which is their kind of their it's part of their philanthropic thing to get people out there thinking about games. So check that out. Again, it's Friday, November 20th in St. Louis. Nate, what do you have?
So I have a couple of things. There's a Wall Street Journal article that just came out about Zappos, and the headline is kind of confusing. It talks about, causes confusion with bosses or something like that. But what it gets down to is that Zappos has decided to implement a self-managing organization philosophy called holacracy, and has, it's got middle managers kind of wondering where they fit in and what they should be doing. And it was fascinating to read the article. I'm kind of interested in the holacracy thing. I haven't really deep dived into it yet, but I think it's worth looking at. We're always kind of looking for how we take the self-managed team idea and apply it to our organization. So it's interesting to see this out there. I hadn't heard of it. I didn't know it was out there. So that's something I want to look into more. And the other one is I'm always picking games for picks on This Agile Life. So I'm going to pick another one. There's a game that I'm addicted to called Hearthstone. That's by Blizzard, the same guys that do World of Warcraft. And it's basically a Magic the Gathering type game, collectible card game, and you play against other live humans. They have seasons that go each month, and you try to climb the ranks, or you can just kind of play for fun. And I think it's a really cool game. It requires you to think. You don't have to be. It's not like you've got to think really, really fast and be able to push buttons and all that kind of thing. It's not that sort of game. It's more of a let me take the time and consider all my options and play the one which I think is best kind of game, which I get into. So I find that game to be a lot of fun.
Okay.
Downloading now.
Okay, and then Natalie, you are last but certainly not least.
So, Hearthstone fan, but World of Warcraft addict. So while I've played Hearthstone, I just can't escape the whole World of Warcraft thing. But my picks are just one, which is Eddie Obang, which is a smart failure for a fast-changing world. It's a TED Talk. You guys may have already heard this. It's a few years old, actually. But what is awesome about it is somebody talking about all of the concepts that we as Agile enthusiasts try and instill in people in non-Agile terms. Like these are things that, talking about a fast changing world and how we adapt to it, and failing in a way that is smart and continuing to evolve. And it's under 13 minutes long and worth a listen to. So check it out.
Okay. And of course, that's all we have time for tonight. So please check out thisagilelife.com for the show notes that will have the facilitation tips for the activity that we did tonight, as well as our picks that we just ran down. And we love your feedback. So send us a tweet on Twitter, or as Amos mentioned, check out our website where there's information about how you can be invited to join our This Agile Life Slack channel, where I think the phrase of the week was, you can join us and see how the sausage is being made, right? Yes, right. So if you want to hear how the sausage is being made before we go on the air, please join us. And who knows, maybe we'll invite you to join us, because there have been some great conversations in there. So thanks for listening, and keep living this Agile life.
This Agile Life is brought to you by a community of Agile developers and coaches aspiring to spread the word about this groundbreaking approach to software development. Join us at thisagilelife.com/community.